So,
Nice.
quick question for you, just to get started. You have done a lot of research into the presidential election, and the research had some incredibly surprising findings. And for people that are out there that don't know, like if you see a typical poll would be something like, oh, well, Trump is up 3 points in Pennsylvania. It'll be something like that. It won't tell you the background of what voters are really thinking, what they really believe, and what's driving those numbers. And more importantly, how you can use analytics to predict what's going to happen and the human behavior behind what's going to happen. So
Yes.
you did a lot of work on this. You surveyed over 1,700 people. And what you were looking for was not, well, who are you voting for, but why are you voting for any particular candidate? What
Yes.
did you find and what was just shocking about this?
What shocked me the most, Dr. Valentine, was how the impetus for the study was I kept getting frustrated with people thinking, well, I'm The Rock. I should consider running for president. I'm Oprah. I should consider running for president. And I'm like, why does somebody that's a celebrity feel like they can run for president? That's a very, very difficult job. And you have to have some kind of credentials. And so when me and my research team decided, we actually started doing the research between the was it the 20 right before the 2020 election and up until now. We've been collecting data on an ongoing basis. And what I think was surprising and disappointing at the same time was people, what causes them to vote for a candidate is not things that you think people would vote for a candidate for. And that's what surprised us and was disappointing at the same time. And so when you hear people talk about somebody's up in the polls 3%, 5% in a state, that's frequency stuff, but that's not analytics. That's just giving you a head count. But people, and what surprised us is that people tend to vote on visual attributes, not credibility of candidates. How a candidate looks, why their appearance is, are they overweight, are they short? All of those things are things that people take in consideration when they're voting for candidates, from either the local all the way to the presidency election. And I think that's a disturbing thing that we have to worry about in terms of our country, in terms of presidential and either local and state federal elections. That's just unbelievable that people look at visual attributes and not the credibility of the candidates.
So, what are the particular visual attributes that you found that were incredibly significant in the study?
We found things like height, weight, and gender, which was surprising to us. We found that people, they didn't particularly like presidential candidates that wore glasses. They didn't like candidates that had facial hair. They didn't like candidates with the wrong hairdo. All of these things were visual attributes that had nothing to do with the credibility of the candidates. And that's why I believe we see people that run for office, they all have the same look, clean shaven, no beard. I don't know what the thing about the beard is that puts people off. Maybe that'll change with the millennials and the new generation. I don't know, but people don't like people with facial hair to run for office. And to prove my point, I believe, and I had said this when we presented this at the conference, I believe Dr. Cornel West is a kind of an off-party candidate trying to run. I could look at him and tell he's not going to win. He's not going to get any votes. If he does, it's people that liked him already. Why? He doesn't have the right look. He has his hair, he has an afro, he has a goatee, and he wears glasses. Those are the three negative things that people do not like when they vote for candidates. Now, I'll talk about something previous that is going to surprise you, Dr. Valentine. Do you remember Herman Cain when he ran for
I
office?
do. I
Herman
do.
Cain had glasses, even though he's a very smart man. He had glasses, he had a mustache, and people wasn't feeling him. People were like, he was always get outvoted. He got a cabinet position or something, but people didn't vote for him because why? The glasses is what threw people off. And I would like to think, well, we got this thing about people who wear glasses that are smarter. That's not necessarily true. But it's something about glasses that puts people off when they vote for candidates. So I don't know what that's about. Again, it's just odd, some of our findings that we found in our research.
So when I was researching and preparing for the interview, one of the things
Mm-hmm.
I found out that I think was really interesting. I got
Uh-huh.
a quick trivia I'm going to throw out there.
Okay.
Who was the last president we had below 6 feet tall? Now, your research said that height is an issue, and
Yes.
obviously, the taller the better.
Yes.
So, who was the last president we had below 6 feet? I had to look it up. I didn't know either. So,
Oh
I'm
man,
not trying
that's a
to
good
stump you.
one.
I got stumped too. I was racking my
Oh
brain trying to figure
man,
it out.
it's on the tip of my tongue. Was it Roosevelt?
No, he was below 6 feet though. You are correct on that. It was Jimmy
Okay.
Carter.
Oh wow,
Jimmy Carter was 5'9.5", and that was the last president we had below 6 feet tall.
that is remarkable. Oh
So
wow, I didn't know
it
that.
when I was doing random research for this, I also came across an article last night. And I'll put a link to it below the video. But there is a huge correlation between swipes on Tinder and the height of a male. If a male is over 6 foot, they're like 80 something% more likely to get swipes than a
Really?
male below 6 foot. So there is something in the science about this. I don't even know. I mean, I hate to think of presidential elections basically like we're on Tinder, but
Yes.
it's the same underlying concept. If you're over 6 foot, you have a chance. If you're under 6 foot, your chances are much lower. So
Wow, that's really disturbing. I mean,
that was it. Jimmy Carter was 5'9", the last president that we've had below 6 foot. The shortest president we had was George W. Bush, who was 6 feet exactly.
oh, he was the shortest?
Yeah, he was the shortest at 6 feet exactly. Everybody else that we look at, like if you look at the most popular presidents as far as polling numbers,
Mm-hmm.
which would be Reagan, Clinton, and Obama, would be the
Right.
three in the modern era that had the highest popularity ratings when I looked this up.
Mm-hmm.
All three of them were exactly 6 feet two.
Wow. Isn't that
So I
interesting?
didn't know that. I didn't know that,
Wow.
but it was
I
kind of interesting.
what was it Mitt Romney? He's about what, 6'3", 6'4"?
He was 6'3". The tallest candidate was John Kerry, who's 6'5".
Oh, Kerry is 6'5". I did not know that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Now and then considering that, that lets you know how much visual attributes play in people's opinion when they vote for a candidate, which I just really find that disturbing, to be honest with you. I think that's just
completely.
disturbing. And then what we found in our study also was credibility came second after visual attributes, which it should be the other way around. It should be your credibility should be first, your credentials should be first, and your visual attributes should either be second or third. And that was what was really disturbing in our findings about presidential candidates. And again, we're in a really bad place in America. We vote for people like that. I think we're in a really bad place.
Yeah, that is very concerning. It's very, very
Yes.
concerning.
Yes, it
So
is. Mm-hmm.
the one thing that kind of struck me also about what you did was, in addition to the visual appearances, I was going back to say, was there a president? Who was the last president who had facial hair? And
Oh
you've got to go
wow.
back a long ways.
The 16th, was it 1700s, I think.
Teddy Roosevelt was the last one.
He had a mustache, correct?
He had a mustache. Teddy
That
Roosevelt
was
was the last one.
1920s. Is that right?
Yes,
Roughly
correct. Right before the Great Depression and all
right
that.
before the
So
Great Depression. Wow.
it's kind of funny, but that was a totally different era too, because we didn't
Mhm.
have TV.
We didn't have the media. We didn't have
Yeah,
video. Obviously, we didn't have social media. And I believe he was a military hero, and he went to Cuba, I believe, right?
correct.
He won some war in Cuba, and in the military in those days, I believe they used to let you have facial hair. Then the military stopped, and that was probably why he got away with facial hair. All he did was transition. He was a war hero, and all he did was transition into the presidency. But he was the
Right.
last one. None since then. Is that right?
That's
Wow.
correct. None since then.
None
So
since then.
it's so interesting that your research, like when I first heard it, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wait a minute, this can't be right. But then I
Oh,
go back and
yes.
fact check the research with the polling data and with the elections, and it's dead on. And that's what shocked me. But I even go back to like even in my lifetime, like all the elections that we went through. Like, the first election I remember as a kid was Reagan and Mondale.
Yes,
And
yes, I
that
remember.
was the very first election I remember. And you go back and think about it in a very casual way. Who was the better looking between Reagan and Mondale?
He didn't have a chance. Reagan
No,
was an actor.
he was a
Reagan,
movie star.
he was a movie star. He's used to posing. He had
Yep.
grace. He knew how to pose for the camera. He knew how to talk. Reagan was prepped to be president years before that. And there's a lot of similarities between Reagan and Trump. Trump is being taught how to present himself in public. He's taught how to posture. Posture is everything. If you don't look presidential, which goes to the visual attributes that we found in our research, people are just not going to vote for you, and there's nothing you can do. Your voice inflection has a lot. Now, your voice inflection is what sells everything else. However, if you consider the guys that lost, and I remember we had talked at the conference, we had talked about the infamous debate between Kennedy and Nixon,
Nixon.
and it was a disaster. Nixon was probably more qualified, but what hurt him? He didn't look presidential. He wasn't coached correctly, and he looked nervous, and it showed in the camera. And his posture and everything did not show him to be the best candidate. But when you look at Kennedy, who had great advisors around him, your posture, how you talk, how you present yourself to the audience. And if we look at any of the best candidates who nailed it, Ronald Reagan was the best. Ronald Reagan is probably the template that probably Donald Trump is using. So we look at Biden and we look at Donald Trump, our two candidates that are running for the 2024 presidential election. Why do you think Donald Trump is beating them in specific states? Donald Trump is not a bad-looking guy. He's not. He may not be the smartest guy in the room, but you would never know that. The way he's been coached, the way he presents himself, and people just they believe what he says. And then when you contrast that with Biden, he doesn't look energetic. He looks tired. He looks like he just wants to go take a nap. And that is really, really influencing people how they vote. Remember, that's a visual attribute as well. You know, how you come across to your audience. And again, that's a surprising finding, but it's also disturbing at the same time. Do we vote for candidates about their credibility? Joe Biden's credibility is probably way more extensive than Donald Trump's, but you just don't want to vote for the guy because of how he looks to you. And that's what these voters are voting on. And I don't know if he's not getting good advice from his advisors. I mean, knowing what we know from our study, if we were consultants, we would really change his game up. If we were consulting his advisors, say, whatever you do, make this guy look like he's energetic, find his physical attributes and accentuate those. And, you know, we have to understand the presidency has become a popularity contest. We don't want to admit that, but it is. It's a popularity contest. Who's the most popular guy to go run for office, and that's who wins. Not the best candidate, not the most experienced, not the one who's a family man. You know, it really surprised us, Dr. Valentine. I think the most disturbing was moral values and ethics ranked low when we ran our analysis and numbers. So people don't care about moral values. They like who they like. The guy could be a serial killer. He beat the case. Well, he's running for office, but he looks good. Well, you'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And I believe that's what we're dealing with Donald Trump. They're giving them the benefit of the doubt. Hey, everybody's human, right? He can't be no better than anybody else. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's just a critical observation that we made. We collected our data. How people vote on physical attributes that have nothing to do with the credibility of the candidates. And it's sad and it's surprising.
The thing that struck me when I was thinking about this, so you take a guy I'm taking a controversial figure in the news right now, P. Diddy.
Yes.
P. Diddy would not be president more so because of his facial hair than
That's
character
right.
issues. I mean, how messed up is
Exactly.
that? You know, it's
Exactly. And now there's another side to this too. The younger generation, we may see a shift in the next 10 years. The younger generation don't feel like you're a cool guy if you don't have a beard or goatee, like a jazz musician. You're a
right.
cool cat with the glasses. Remember when Bill Clinton played the saxophone on was
On
it Arsenio
Arsenio, yeah,
Hall?
I remember that.
Right. He scored many points. They like that's the cool president. So
Yeah,
when you look at the two candidates that we have, who's the cool president? Donald Trump. He's the
yeah.
cool guy. It's not everybody agrees with that. Excuse me, but it's just really surprising and sad. That's where we are in American politics. How somebody looks, and that determines whether people will vote for him or not. That's real. We're in a really sad time right now.
So, how much do you think of Trump and how he presents himself is because he was on The Apprentice all those years and was on
That
reality TV? And
I Great question. What did he do? He followed the Ronald Reagan template. Ronald, when you're used to being in front of the camera, they tell you how to pose. You do that over and over, your posture. Donald Trump is so natural because he was on TV. When he ran for president, because when they run for office, right, aren't they always in the news? Aren't they always in talk shows? Aren't they always in the media? Well, he was already ready by the time he ran for office because of why? He followed the Ronald Reagan template. How to look, how to talk, how to take some your opponent's point and use it against them and make it humorous. And that's what he did. I mean, the guy is ingenious to do that. He probably was running for president before he actually ran because he was on TV. And if you watch The Apprentice, even then, he looked like the kind of guy that could make a decision and I think twice about it. And if we put him in office, he would do the same thing. And that's what people saw. And Biden doesn't have that kind of background to. I think he's been in office for a number of years. I don't want to call him a career politician, but that's what he looks like. And Donald Trump was just groomed to be president. He was groomed, just like Ronald Reagan. I'm sorry, did I say Ronald Reagan? Just like Ronald Reagan. He was an actor. He's used to being in front of the camera. His hair is in the right place. His makeup is immaculate. His foundation, whatever they put when they're on camera. How do you lose? Visual attributes.
yeah, it's so funny you mentioned about Trump and the
Mhm.
preparation. If you remember, I used to watch The Apprentice. I love the show. You know,
Oh
whether or not you
yes,
like Donald Trump before the
excellent show.
politician. As a
Excellent
business
show.
person, I love the show.
I loved it as well.
Still actually show clips of that in my class occasion. But
That's a wonderful teaching tool.
it
Wonderful
is.
teaching
It
tool.
is because it was foundational business stuff that you just don't
Absolutely.
get a lot of places. But if you remember
Absolutely.
the very first episode of The Apprentice, Trump comes down the escalator at Trump Tower where they have, marble floors and gold walls and all that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And,
I do
and
remember that
meets,
episode.
yeah, and meets all of the candidates down there. When
Yeah.
he announced he was running for president, it was the exact same scene. He's going down the escalator at Trump Tower and then
Uh-huh.
announcing he's going to run for president. He's going to build a wall and do all this stuff.
He
And it
said
seemed to
that
me it was
then,
like an
didn't he?
episode of The Apprentice. It was almost like, oh, I've done this before. I'm just going to follow the recipe.
Absolutely. That's really ingenious that he was doing that then. And I also believe when they asked him to do that show, he was really prepared to be a president. He looks presidential in the show, how he makes decisions. And one of the things that you notice about him in the show, and I don't really believe he's like this as a person. He cares about his people because some people that he fired on the show, he actually asked them to come work for him later. He wasn't trying to be difficult or hard. He wanted to say, I have to make a decision and I'm not going to make everybody happy. And I got to make a decision for the best of all, not for the benefit of the chosen few. And so by him doing that, he was actually preparing himself visually to be president, which is why he's so popular. And you don't think they're showing the episodes of The Apprentice on some network? All of, I mean, he can't get any better PR than that. Absolutely. And so There's questions about, his ethics. There's questions about what he would do as a president. And none of that matters. It's how he looks, how he projects himself, how he talks, and how he comes across to the voters. That's why he's beating Biden. And I don't know how they're going to overcome that. I really don't know how they're going to do that.
And going back to the 2020 election, I think this is an interesting note. When you did your preliminary research prior to the 2020 election, you were
Yes.
actually calling for Biden then. And
Yeah.
so,
The
but
results were completely different then.
it
Yeah.
was completely different. It was
Completely
completely
different.
different. You
Oh, it
know,
wasn't as much as visual as it is now. And that's the really big difference that we saw in our data. Now it's more visual, which I was like, how did that happen? How do we go from here to here? And we're not done collecting data, trust me. We're probably gonna collect another 1,000. I think that.
and see what happens with that. So
Yeah.
I think one thing that was important about your study, this was about the general elections. This was not
Yes.
about primaries.
Yes.
Now, when you go back to primaries, like one of the things we had talked about before, and I'll use Nikki Haley as an example. Whether or
Yes.
not you think Nikki Haley is exceptionally attractive or anything like that, we can all agree
Yes.
she's more attractive than Donald Trump, correct?
Of course, absolutely. Yes.
Now, why didn't she get more traction in the primaries as opposed to Donald Trump, with her being the more attractive candidate?
I can answer that question for you, Dr. Valentine. Because when we looked at visual attributes, one of the visual attributes was gender. People like the president to be male as opposed to female. Not saying the females are not qualified, not saying that they would make a good president. People, and I'm talking when we actually did a Nova on that part of it about, we have the people that are conservative, liberal, moderate, and other. It was pretty consistent that that gender is a I would say a deal breaker in terms of who they would vote for. No matter how liberal they were, now even the women voted that gender is a factor, meaning they would prefer a man to be president, and that's why she ran a good campaign. She had a good run, but what's the problem? Visual attributes. She's not a man. Men project strength. Men, not saying women don't. It's just, like my mother used to say, sometimes it's just not your time. And maybe if we had a more, I'd say more liberal, more moderate audience or maybe voters, it would be quite possible to have a woman president. But as long as gender is a visual attribute that determines if they vote for a candidate, all the people that we surveyed, it's going to be really hard to overcome that. Maybe this new generation, as we die off, the old guard, the new guard comes in, they may have a completely different attitude. They don't have a problem having a woman president. But it's so many things a woman president has to overcome. It's just, I don't know, America is built on, we want to fight the Indians. We want to fight at the Alamo. Did you see women fight or did you see men fighting? And that's just how people think. And, I don't think it's right. However, that's a long ingrained ideology and mindset that people have. I prefer to have a man president. And you ask them, they're not going to admit it. They're not going to tell you why. They're not going to tell you, why does that matter? Because why? That's how people are. That's how we grew up. Doesn't make it right, but that's how people think.
I think that's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's interesting. One of the things about your survey, the majority of respondents classify themselves as liberal.
Yes.
So it's not like you were taking your survey directly from Alabama or somewhere like that. I mean, you had a
Exactly.
cross section of everybody, but there were more liberals than any other group in the
And
survey.
that surprised us. They think just like the conservatives or the moderates. And why is that? Visual attributes.
Yeah.
Gender was and I don't know if you caught this too. Sexual orientation ranked high as a visual attribute. People don't feel comfortable with a president that has an alternative lifestyle. And again, we can argue that point. We can say you got to treat people the same. People don't. You talking about the most conservative to the most liberal? It was pretty consistent. Sexual orientation was a visual attribute that people use that as a basis for how they vote for a candidate, and people, that's another issue that people have. It was gender and sexual orientation. And I believe when we ask the respondents the question, would you have a problem with your president candidate having an alternative lifestyle? That really bothered them, from the most conservative to the most liberal. And why is that? Maybe that was ideology about, you remember when we were younger, we applied for a job and the guy could never get promoted because he's single and not married, and somebody
Yeah.
gave some advice to get married.
Right.
Why? The single guy's willing to take risks, but a married guy's not, because he's not thinking about just himself. He's thinking about his family, your family. So people tend to vote for people to have a family. I don't want a reckless guy in there that wants to bomb Iraq at the drop of a hat. Well, hold up. Let's get our facts together. Because a man that has a family doesn't take risk like that. Our family for him, it's something about it. I know that's probably not really right, whether you have a family or not, whether you get elected. That's how people think. It's really, really a visual thing that people think like that. A single guy and a married guy, that's why they tell some of the candidates when they run for office, go get married. Why? It just looks better when your wife is on the campaign trail with you. It looks good when you show your kids on stage with you. Obama nailed it. Trump nailed it. So you get this single guy like Dr. Valentine running for office. He has a girlfriend, but he's not married. He's not probably going to get past the primary. Why? They want to see the family. It's all about visual attributes.
That's interesting. That is so
Yes.
interesting. It's funny you mentioned that. When I grew up in Arkansas, Bill Clinton was the governor as a single man, and then he
Oh,
lost his
really?
reelection bid.
Oh, wow.
And while he lost in those 4 years, that's when he married Hillary. And then
Isn't
when he
that
re-ran
something?
for governor, he was married to Hillary. And so it was
Wow.
interesting. I don't know if it was, solely a political decision, him getting married, but it did help him get reelected. There's no question about that.
That's what people care about. I believe the term, way it was told to me, was it shows stability.
Right.
Marriage, family, your wife shows stability. You're stable. You're not going to go make reckless decisions. You're not going to do anything that would harm the country, because why? You're a family man. You think in stereo, not mono. And that's how people vote.
So if you were an advisor to the next Hillary, the next female candidate who has a realistic chance of winning the election, what would you try to do to overcome the obvious, preconceived idea that, oh, we prefer a male over a female president? What could you do to try to mold that candidate to something that might be able to get over the top?
I would probably recommend, obviously, she have a family. Obviously build up her track record of her body of work, like in the academic where we say body of work, build a track record of successes, and make it to where when you're running for office, you're the obvious choice, not the most popular choice. Because we want the female candidate, and we hate to say this, they have to be really almost better than male candidate just to even be considered for the job. But I would also advise her probably the way to wear her hair. Don't wear glasses. She don't have to wear a pantsuit like Hillary. That's kind of overkill.
Right.
She can be a lady. She can be feminine, but we want her to also project competency. And if we're worried about strength, then her strength would be how she would put people around her, like former President Bush. He put good people around him. He had Dick Cheney. He had Colin Powell. He had what was it? Was it Rice? Is it Susan Rice? Yes,
Condoleezza.
Condoleezza Rice. Susan is her cousin. I always get them mixed up. Those people, the three of them, were very sharp. He had Dick Cheney around him, so he was well taken care of. So if he made a decision based on expertise around him. That's what the female president is going to have to. She's going to have to use the Bush model, and then it may come to a point where she may have to have a strong VP that would help her, back her up, because a lot of it is visual. If she has a strong VP, most likely she's going to be the president, and the VP is going to have to be a strong guy to back her up. That's what she's going to have to do. And
Do you
again,
think Hillary made a mistake in selecting Tim Kaine as her running mate? Because that was a guy that did not fit the prototypical presidential mold. You know, he was,
I believe she made a lot of mistakes. I believe
yeah,
she didn't have a strong running mate. I think that she should have picked a running mate that was make her look good, uh, credential wise and also visual wise, and also let the VP uh let the VP that you picked as your running mate, or I'm sorry, he's not VP till he gets elected. Let your running mate make you look good, compliment you.
yeah.
And then we're at the other part of it. I believe people thought she was going to pick Bernie Sanders, right, to be her running mate. She did the opposite of that. And that kind of hurt her because people that voted for Bernie Sanders jumped ship and voted for what, Trump? Just because they're mad at her because she didn't pick Bernie Sanders. You being strategic in picking your running mate is really, really, really something they have to think about. And, Biden probably made a better choice for VP than she did, or as a running mate. When he picked Kamala Harris, he did two things. He picked the first female to be vice president, and he also picked a female that was black, so that would garner the black vote. Why he didn't pick Elizabeth Warren? Why he didn't pick I forgot the young lady's name. I can never say her name. You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
Okay.
He wanted somebody that made him look good, and that's what he did. So if you ask me what should a female president do, she should take lessons from the past. Pick a running mate that makes you look good, that's going to make your presidency look like you guys know what you're doing. You guys got this, and people come on board. We're going to turn this country around. That's the mistake that she made. She didn't pick a good running mate.
That's interesting. When we were
Absolutely.
talking about running mates the other day, there was a couple things that came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
In the election where Obama was running against John McCain, I
Yes.
looked this up last night. First of all, in concert with your research, McCain was 5'9". He
Oh,
was
wow.
he was older, definitely didn't, wasn't at his physical prime or anything close to it as a candidate.
Yes.
But he goes and picks Sarah Palin as a running mate who came out of left field. Nobody ever heard of Sarah Palin.
Right.
Regardless
Nobody
of what
heard
you
of
think of
her.
her, she was off the radar. Nobody had any
She was like the
clue.
wild card.
Did he pick her because he was looking for that youthful element to his campaign to try to offset the young people that are going to be gravitated towards Obama? Because
Mm-hmm.
Obama, if you look at the candidate, like you talk about the Reagan makeup, the Bill Clinton makeup,
Mm-hmm.
Obama had that. Good
Obama
looking
had
guy.
charisma. He had the
Yeah,
look.
he's out there playing basketball and doing
Yeah.
other stuff, and you think he's a regular guy because
Right.
of him doing that stuff. Now, all that being said, I can't imagine playing basketball against a guy who has Secret Service protection. I mean, if you try
Yeah.
to hand check Obama, I mean,
I'm gonna
that's not
tell
going
you,
to
I
work out
think
well.
Obama studied Reagan. To be honest with you, I believe he studied Reagan, how Reagan projected himself. Obama did his homework. He
He did.
obviously studied Ronald Reagan. Can we say McCain did that? McCain was a war hero. It goes back to Teddy Roosevelt. That was probably fine then. Is that fine now? Don't mean under this generation. Okay, you're a war hero. What else you got? What else you got? I thought McCain would have been a good president, but his age. And when we did our research, age was a visual attribute as well. Do you look youthful? Do you look, man, if you are older, do you look like a guy, a 60, 70-year-old guy that goes to the gym still? And then also, if you remember their election and the debate, McCain just did not have the charisma that Obama had. And remember,
Yeah,
all this
not
stuff
even
is
close.
visual. Yeah.
Not even close.
He looked like an old guy. You probably see him at the barbershop talking about the game, whatever. And he had a disconnect with the younger generation. Obama was very, very uh, strategic in trying to reach the younger generation. Like, remember we used to call it the Pepsi generation? That's
Right,
what
right.
Obama. John McCain was Coca-Cola. Obama was Pepsi, and that's how we came across when they ran. When they had their debates, people are like, "Do you want old? Do you want brand new?" And that was a. Remember, we said we looked at our research. Age was also a visual attribute, and that surprised me the most about age. Well, what you want a man that's more experienced to be the president? People are like this. They don't care about that. Age is
And we
a
got the two oldest
consideration.
candidates in history running against each other now, 78 and
Yeah.
82. I mean, this is
You think Donald Trump dyes his hair? Do you think
yeah,
he's
I can
doing
tell you he
everything?
does. Yeah.
You think he's trying to look between a certain age range? The guy's smart. I got to give it to him. He's smart. If I don't look youthful, I'm not going to attract the youthful age group or your age demographic. So, I mean, Donald Trump has followed Ronald Reagan. I know Ronald Reagan dyed his hair. You, I mean, they know what to do. He's been in movies. Donald Trump is doing the same thing. He's following the same template that Ronald Reagan did, almost to a T.
That's so interesting. That is
Oh
so
yes.
interesting. So, when we go up to this upcoming election,
Mm-hmm.
how important do you think it's going to be of who Trump picks as a running mate for the outcome? And ideally, based on the data that you've collected, all the analysis,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the ideal traits of a Trump running mate?
The ideal traits would be a guy that's the right height, the right weight, the maybe have some charisma, and the candidate would have oh goodness, those attributes that we talked about. No facial hair. Trump doesn't look like he's going after the younger generation. He's probably going after the middle to the older generation. He'd probably want a guy that has a Kennedy kind of thing going, a Kennedy persona. And I believe he's going to pick a guy either close to his age or a little younger, so people won't be worried about his age. And he'll have the template: no facial hair, no glasses, uh, married, right? Probably has a couple of kids. Probably went to Ivy League school. That's the other thing that was interesting. They didn't care about what school you went to. If he follows the template of the 10 visual attributes that we looked at in our data, he can probably pull us off. He can probably pull it off. I'm sure he's not going to pick a woman. He's going to, because basically he has to be the uncola to the cola, right? Joe Biden looks like cola. Donald Trump is probably going to try to go the Pepsi route to get the younger generation on this, because he already has the old generation, but he's going to go after the younger generation. It will be probably in his best interest to find a candidate that can touch that younger generation. And that's all about strategy. And they don't have to be somebody popular. They have to be some of the people that ran. Could be somebody brand new, somebody that's up and comer, that's going to make him look good. That would be the strategy that I think Donald Trump would go after in terms of a running mate.
Okay. So,
Absolutely.
in this crazy election cycle that we're dealing with now, I think it's so interesting, all these attributes, and the fact that age wasn't one of the top issues surprised me,
I
because
know.
I thought with the two oldest candidates ever, age has got to be a top. It wasn't a top issue.
Wasn't a top issue. It was visual, but it wasn't a top issue. People, I think, as we've gotten more comfortable with older guys, I hate to say older guys, guys that are seasoned, that are running for president, we don't have a problem with that, because he has a cabinet behind him. He has advisors around him. If he has a lapse in judgment, there's 10, 15 people that's going to talk him to do otherwise. So when we look at visual attributes, and remember, credibility came second, they would probably not worry about that as much as they did when Ronald Reagan originally ran, because I believe he was older than Jimmy Carter at the time. And Ronald Reagan just had charisma. Donald Trump has charisma. I don't think people are going to worry about his age. See, Donald Trump is almost like a snake oil salesman. He doesn't look his age. He looks younger. I'm sure the guy's dyed his hair at night. I'm sure the guy has a beautician to make him look good, and that's what he has to do. Now, Joe Biden, on the other hand, he looks his age, right? He has trouble walking. They don't want him walking with a cane, right? That looks bad when you run for office walking with a cane. Now, that's superficial, right? That's how these people are voting. They would say things like, this guy's running for president, he needs a walker. That there within
That's not going to
itself,
happen.
not gonna happen.
Not
They'll
going to
have
happen.
people hold him up, walk with him, but I'll be damned if they're gonna have him walking with a cane. It's no way. No way.
So we got a third candidate in this mix,
Yes.
RFK Jr.,
Yes.
who, again, if you think he's a good looking guy or not, he's better looking than, Trump and Biden.
Yes.
He
does have
probably
a
meets
look.
that visual cue. And like you said, he's in shape for his age. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him
I've
like
seen a
running and
couple of
stuff.
pictures of him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in good shape. He stays in the gym and he's fit.
Yes.
Why doesn't he have a chance?
I believe he came in I don't know when he got into the race, he got in late because nobody's really heard of him. I think his timing was probably not the best. Also, I believe that is he Democrat or is he Republican? I'm not sure where
He
he
was
is.
a Democrat, but he's running
Okay.
as an independent.
He's running as independent. Okay.
So he's trying to go the pro route.
Okay, Ross Perot, yes. I believe what's hurting him is his voice. His voice sounds like he sounds tired. He sounds like he's getting ready to take a sneeze or something. And
Right.
what's hurting him, his visuals are all right, but his voice is not resonating with people. And I know they're interviewing him a lot on the media, especially when they talk about the candidates running. If he were to get into the game now, he'd be probably, would they pick him as a running mate? I don't think so. The running mate has to have a vivacious demeanor about him. They want a guy that's in shape or whatever. I'm sure he has all those things, but when you hear the guy talk, it's a deal breaker. And if I was his advisors, I'd have him taking talking classes or something, or making his voice a lot stronger than it sounds. You can fix a guy's little quirks. You can fix a guy's little his characteristics that are not appealing to people. You can fix that. You can coach that. And I believe if he had a good political advisor, he would overcome that. He would talk. They'd probably have him taking vocal classes, how to project his voice, how to speak properly. Not saying he doesn't speak properly, but how to sound presidential.
Yeah,
All this
I
is
heard
visual.
he had some physical ailment that caused his voice to be that raspy, but
Yes.
I agree with you. It seems like it's something that could be better.
You look at the guy, you say, hey, he looks like a pretty good candidate. Then when he talks, it's like, that makes you a little bit, oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe we make him a cabinet head or put him on a cabinet post, not for president. And remember, we're so bad as Americans about how we vote. I believe that's what's stopping him from being, considered a serious candidate. The way he sounds, it's unfortunate. I mean, do you want a president or you want a popularity contest? That's the unfortunate residue of all of this. We don't care about credentials. We don't care about their body of work. We don't care about what they've done in the past. Does he look good? Does he sound good? Does he project himself good? Okay, I'm all in. That's what we have here with the voters. And it's really changed completely since we collected data from 2024. It's actually gotten worse up until this election.
It makes sense why it's gotten worse. I mean, you think about social media and everything else. It's like everything we do is superficial.
Very superficial.
And it's like one of those things. It's like, I even see it in my kids growing up now. It's like everything is about, what's on, TikTok or Instagram or something like that. And you just like, I don't know. I don't get this.
Yeah, and when we
But
look
they
at
do.
age, Yeah, we look at age. It doesn't even change with age. Now remember when we did a linear regression, and age of the voters was a key predictor. Age of the voter, gender of the voter, what was the other one? Was it political party? Those were keys to how people vote, and that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Age, I believe, there's a clash between the younger generation age group and the older generation. And again, as we collect more data, and we'll be collecting data past this election, we'll probably have a little bit more refinement about what are the best strong predictor variables. But again, we still coming up with visual stuff, visual attributes. It's unfortunate.
Is voice one of the things you're going to be looking at moving forward in your next
Yeah,
round of
we're gonna
surveys?
add. Yeah, we're gonna add voice projection as a variable. We'll keep our data because obviously all data's good. We're gonna add, we redo revise our instrument. We're gonna add voice inflection or voice. How your I believe we may add that and charisma because charisma and your voice are two new visual attributes. And again, Kennedy brings back, he shoots all the stuff out of water. If you look at him and then you listen to him, that throws all the other stuff off because people, if you can't reach the people, you can't talk to them, how are you going to run for office?
Yeah.
You can't say what they want to hear or project yourself how they see you. And again, we may get more disappointed as we collect more data.
I got a feeling you will be. I mean, that's the
I
thing.
know.
I was
Yeah.
shocked when I saw your findings.
Yes, sir.
It honestly, at first take, it was difficult to swallow and really difficult to believe it. But then like I said, very first, you back check everything and it all checks out.
It's not
And when you back
unfortunate.
check it's like, oh yeah, this is held true in every election.
And I
Go
think,
through who is the better looking candidate, election by
yes,
election, and it's just okay, it makes sense. Was Obama better looking than Mitt Romney? Was Trump better looking than Hillary? Was George Bush better looking than Al Gore or John Kerry? It's you go back and it does make sense.
and when you get into like some of the leadership research and the leadership studies, they talk about things about, was it transformational leaders and then transactional leaders. We probably should incorporate some of that in our analysis. I don't know. I don't think leaders are defined like that so vividly. I think leaders, there's there are probably 4 leadership categories, and they probably pick one that they're subscribed to. But remember, leadership is harder to measure in terms of effectiveness than say management. Management is very finite. You either performing or you're not performing, but leadership, that's a completely different animal.
So one of the things that your survey yielded was character of the
Yes,
candidate was
yes,
below looks. And one of the comments we had during the session where you initially presented this paper was,
yes,
well, I think that's probably because everybody doesn't trust any of the candidates, and they all think they're flawed in some way, and their
right,
character is compromised and stuff. And depending on what news outlet you listen to, you think Trump is absolutely the worst person that ever walked the face of the earth, or if you listen to another news outlet, Biden is the worst person,
right.
and he's covering up, for his son. You hear all these things, and it's like, well, what do you believe? Well, the thing is it easier to believe what you see versus what you hear?
There you go. You hit it on the head, Dr. Valentine. And as we have social media, uh, as you know, when people have a scandal while they're running for office, they lose points, and people that are with them either with them or they're against them. And I'll say this: some people, if you like a guy, bad stuff, you're gonna look the other way. If you don't like a guy, bad stuff is what you're gonna focus on.
Yeah.
And didn't Trump he's on trial for the lady that he paid money to? You ask some of the people that are pro-Trump, what do they say? Well, that has nothing to do with him being president. That has nothing to do with him running office, the Oval Office. Hell, I think something's wrong with him if he ain't tried to pay for a woman one time in his life.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's crazy. If you look at how much like mores have changed over the years, if you remember,
Yes,
Gary Hart was going to be the Democratic nominee back in the
yes, I
80s, and then
remember.
he
Right,
had an affair, and then he drops out because he knew he had no chance of winning. Once that
exactly,
affair, and when Trump, the Stormy Daniels thing came out, his popularity ratings went up.
exactly,
And I'm trying to
exactly.
figure that. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're with a porn star and your popularity goes up. I mean,
You know what I
gay
was
America.
thinking? That right, nowhere else but America, like Don King, only in America.
Only in
I bel
America.
right, I believe, believe it or not, that show virility. He's a man. He's gonna go have relations with a woman, and that probably how people spin that. Well, he's a man. What do you expect a man to do? She's not an ugly woman, you know. Somebody's gonna give her money, and guys, listen. This is how people, they I would say minimized it. Does that mean when he was running his companies, when he had a multinational his hotels, you don't think he was doing that when he was running those and he still ran them and still made money? So he pays this one woman. So what? Did that affect his decision about how he ran his company or how he ran a country? No. And people put emphasis on things when they don't like a candidate, and they put emphasis on things when they do like a candidate. People that like him minimize that. People that dislike him maximize that. But still, he still won, right?
Yeah,
He still won.
yeah. It's so funny to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
I guess in people's minds and voters' minds, you divorce the ability to do a job versus the ability to run a family, which
Exactly.
which are really different skill sets. They're really,
Exactly.
really different skill sets. I mean,
Uh-huh.
whether you're a man, a woman, or no matter what you are, they're different. And
Exactly.
that's I think thing people probably are beginning to understand a little bit more so. It's kind of funny you mentioned this. I had talked to a buddy of mine yesterday. Is my age and still single, if you could believe that. But he was telling me about a date he had, first date, and the girl, all she talks about is like my career this and my career this and my career this. And he's sitting there thinking in his head, he didn't say this, but like whether you're a good girlfriend, a good wife, or whatever has nothing to do with your career.
Right.
I want to know all the rest.
And yeah, she could probably have a good career. That means is she gonna be a good wife? Is she gonna be a good mother? Is
Exactly.
she
You
gonna
don't know
help
because
you
they're totally
build
different
something?
skills.
Totally different skills. And some men could probably handle that. Some men can't. Some men
Yeah.
want a wife. They want somebody that's gonna support the family, and she's probably not that girl. Doesn't mean she's bad. Just
No, it's
what
just you got to have the right fit.
the right fit, and she didn't fit the right profiles. How do you build something with a woman like that? That's what you got to ask yourself. How do you build an empire? How do you build a good family foundation? And again, you want your woman,
It's a dynamic
yeah,
situation about what's the right dynamic for you.
exactly. And if you marry a woman that's compliments you and makes she don't have to be like you, but compliments you, that's what comes across when these guys run for office, when they start getting into their spouses. Donald Trump, his wife, she's absolutely drop dead gorgeous. How many first ladies have you seen like her? Not
Probably
many.
Jackie O. That's about
Jackie O
it.
was probably the last one. But
Yeah.
before that, when you thought of the president's wives, they were just, I don't know, regular women. They weren't nothing
Yeah.
spectacular. Jackie O broke the mold, but now after that, I can't remember anybody's wife that was drop dead gorgeous like Melania Trump. But Pete,
I think Hillary broke a mold too because she was the first woman that was really active in her husband's presidency.
you're exactly right. She broke the mold because it was almost like you got two presidents for one. That used to be the
You did.
joke on Bill Clinton. If you vote for him, you voting for him and his wife because she wants to be president. And then she's very assertive. She's very aggressive. She looks like she's had one of his cabinet posts, But your wife has a lot to do with the marketing too. And how do you lose with Melania Trump? Do you lose? The men will vote for her just because they want to see her in office. Okay,
Yeah. That's
right?
maybe what we're headed to. I don't even
I
know.
think that's exactly where we're headed. Man, how do you not vote for him? Look at his wife. And now we talked to Biden. What do you remember about his wife? What is it that stands out about her? Not much.
She's just a normal person.
She's just normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, the signs of what we saw in our data and what we see with these candidates, Trump is obvious forerunner, obvious. If we look at our attributes and the things that we found in our research, he's obviously there based on there. He doesn't have facial hair. He's tall, he's 6'2". His weight was okay. He's not overweight. Or if he was, it wasn't. He probably wears bigger size suits, so you can't really notice it. And he has
He's
all the
probably
attributes.
a little bit overweight, but not bad.
Not bad. That's probably acceptable.
It's not like a Chris Christie situation, where it's
right.
really noticeable.
People have talked to him repeatedly about his weight. He says it is what it is. He'll never be a presidential candidate unless we just, I don't call it fat shaming, but people want candidates to be slim and trim. That's probably not fair. People are who they are. But that's how shallow some of the things we saw in our research that were quite disturbing, to say the least.
So bottom line, the summary of your research, if you're under 6 foot, you'll never be president. You may never find love on Tinder.
Probably not.
I don't know.
The chances, the science and everything, and the past patterns are working against you.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. I don't know. Well, me and you are above 6 foot, so we got a chance, maybe.
You have a good chance. You're clean cut, you're slim, you're a nice guy, you're personable.
Yeah, the problem is I might win.
You might win, exactly.
that would be the problem. The problem would be I might win.
You're personable. No, you don't have anything bad in your background. You come from a good family. You have a very good chance.
They would find something. I guarantee you, the way politics is, someone would say something. They would find an ex-girlfriend from the 90s or something.
They interview people that knew you. Yeah, I remember this. He cheated on the test.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. That's the one thing about you.
Yeah, he bullied me on the monkey bars in 2nd grade. There'd be something come out. I don't know.
You always got enemies and haters, and you got people that just say things and exaggerate things to give them some meat, and they would take it and run with it. And I was like, man, you really don't like me if you undig that up. I could give you the scoop on what I did better than somebody that, didn't like me. And again, what does this tell us with all the research that we getting into about height and all of this? People vote for candidates based on non-credibility factors. How they look, how tall they are, how much do they weigh, how short are they, what gender they have, do they have facial hair, whether they wear glasses. Has nothing to do with the credibility of the person running for office to be president.
It's crazy. It's crazy, the findings, but it makes sense when you look at the data and look at the results. It adds up to, this is, to me, this is the way polling should be done.
Yes.
Rather than saying, oh, well, Trump's up by a couple of points, Biden's up by a point. Because it's all within the margin of error, and it doesn't really tell you what people are thinking.
It doesn't tell you what people are thinking. There's no analytics involved. It's only frequency and metrics, and that doesn't really tell you anything. When you start looking to, predictive analytics, like, why is this age group consistently voting this way that they do? Should we look at age? Well, if you look at the polling, like what you were just saying, Dr. Valentine, it'd be like, well, who people are you polling? Are you polling young voters? Are you polling older voters? And see, they don't tell you that. It's leave you hanging. Okay, he's up by 10 percentage points. Why is that? They didn't say what the demographic of the voters were. Maybe young voters have a different mindset than their parents. Maybe they don't care about how much you weigh. Maybe they don't care about how tall you are. But that's what we're dealing with.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, thank you for your time today. And
thank you so much for having me.